All right, so just a few minutes late, I'd like to call this meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee to order. Thanks everyone for attending. So close to the holidays. But before we dive into the agenda, I just wanted to let you know that item 4, the outcomes of the C2C expert match engagement, we're gonna have to put that off till January because our point of contact in that program wasn't available tonight. So hopefully the agenda is light enough that we can make up for our late start and still end promptly tonight. So I'd like to go straight into public comment. We have a public commenter here in the room with us, and is there any line?
On the climate action meeting?
Oh, I thought that was a Zoom.
Oh,
Okay.
very great.
All right, so let's see.
The article.
Do you want to sit here where you can be seen clearly?
By the way,
What?
I'll sleep here tonight.
Hey, Ron, can you mute yourself?
Oh, sorry. My name is Webster Collins. I live at 533 Harlan Street in Milton. And what my topic was that well, I'm sure you're aware of it and saw the article about the cost issues as relates to the CAPC issue. That has now evaporated since I wrote that article because Mayor Wu has had her last hurrah and was turned down. And the costs that I was concerned about for the town of Milton are no longer an issue as a result of another event. And I will hand this out on page 2, and I'll read it. It's very significant. So Law Center, that's the Brighter Future, published this. It's a significant, they say, a significant role in the state and federal cases finding municipal takings of home equity unconstitutional. Mayor Wu wanted $130,000 out of my pocket for a property I own in downtown Boston. And that has all gone away because of this. And it doesn't impact Milton in any way, shape, or form. So it just eliminates that as a problem point completely. So that's what I just wanted to present and hand this out to whoever wants to see it.
You gonna read that with us?
This is for you. And I don't think we need this anymore, because I'm here to answer the article that I wrote. And basically, I have nothing more to bring to the table tonight. Now is the reason for coming on purpose for. So with that, I will disappear and you can go to your regular minutes.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate.
Thank you.
I like to be brief.
I appreciate you showing up in person. That's a first for us. All right. Now the next item on the agenda is a vote to approve our meeting minutes from the November meeting. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes and correct them for accuracy and entertainment value?
Oh, whoever did those minutes, they're great.
They certainly are. So I will entertain a motion to approve the approve the minutes. From anybody who would like to offer one.
I'll offer.
I make a motion, we approve.
Who is that?
David.
Stephen, motion. and
Hopkins.
Mike?
Yep.
Yes, and that's second from you, I suppose. Right. All in favor? Okay, seems like the ayes have it. Wonderful. We have some approved meeting minutes. So now we can hop into the meat of the meeting, which is updates on the working group research progress. Who has something that they would like to share tonight? I have put something together that I emailed out shortly before the meeting. So I will talk for a few minutes. Any other working groups ready to update? Transportation? Anyone?
I can just add it was not a very productive month for transportation, with the holidays and all, but I know, there's some grant work that I've been looking at that we've talked about, Alex. And I know, Eric, you had mentioned that you might take a look at the air table. Do you have any updates from that?
I don't, sorry, when I responded, I was watching kind of see what else would come up. And then I didn't follow through on, seeing where people were, because honestly, I need more input from the rest of the team.
Yeah.
So, so transportation kind of a bust this month, it sounds like. Feels like this meeting was yesterday in November, to be honest.
Well, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but since you've got the most emissions, I'm going to hard on you.
I mean, we definitely, things haven't changed much, but we have a lot to work with. Now it's just organizing and starting to put it into the document.
I did see a lot of strategies in the table when I was in there the
Now
last couple of days.
it's a matter of cleaning up, organizing, and starting to work onto the draft, which hopefully will make a lot more forward motion in January.
Okay. Well, then if there's nobody else chomping at the bit to share, I will talk for a few minutes about just make sure my desktop is ready to share here. And of course, it's not showing what I thought it would. Let's see. Where did my stuff go? Is that it? No.
First person I've ever seen use that feature.
There it is. Whew. Lost it for a second. Okay. And you take a moment to make this legible to more people. Some stuff on the screen. Okay. So over the last few days, I have pushed to get a draft of the Buildings and Energy Climate Action Plan chapter done. This is sort of after wrapping up the MAPC Technical Assistance Grant application last week that we'll talk about at the end. And looking forward to, there's a pretty meaty grant opportunity to fund an energy manager position for the town for up to 3 years. It's going to be competitive and kind of a long shot, I think. But the application deadline's January 31st, and I wanted to be able to hit the ground running in the new year, engaging some of the key folks in town who would need to be involved in putting together such a grant application, particularly Consolidated Facilities Director and the Superintendent of Schools. And I felt like to be ready to reach out to them to discuss this grant, I needed to be able to kind of show them what an energy manager is needed for. And so it needed a sort of exhaustive list or a comprehensive list of the high level activities that meeting the state's emissions reduction goals in the building sector would imply. So I'll just, since we seem to have a decent amount of time, I'll run through the goals and strategies. So, we've talked many times before about the pillars of the roadmap to net zero in Milton are replacing end uses of fossil fuels with electricity, while simultaneously increasing the supply of zero carbon renewable electricity on the grid. And so for buildings, that means replacing fossil fuel heating and cooling equipment with electric alternatives when they reach their end of life, and aggressively investing in energy efficiency, because if we install electric heat pumps in leaky, drafty buildings, they will consume so much electricity we won't be able to meet demand. So there are goals in the energy efficiency bucket. Basically, by 2030, we'd like newly constructed buildings to meet the highest energy efficiency building code available in Massachusetts. A lot of towns set a goal for net zero or LEED standard, but my understanding is that there are 3 building codes to choose from in Massachusetts, and so anything that goes beyond that wouldn't be legal, and so therefore not feasible. So I set this goal to align with the most climate-friendly building code offered in Massachusetts. And we've actually done this already by adopting the specialized opt-in code at town meeting this year. But we do need to follow up and make sure that new construction is complying with the spirit as well as the letter of that.
Quick question.
Yes.
Just because I think I'm typing when you said this on the newly constructed buildings, I see it mentioned municipal. Are the newly constructed buildings all newly constructed buildings or just the town buildings?
All.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to be clear without getting pedantic.
Because it's the new construction and major renovations of
Yes.
municipal buildings. I wasn't sure what the other.
Well, you're right. So this next goal goes beyond that. So the town controls the design of municipal buildings, right? So there's no way that you can require private developers to go beyond the building code, but the town can set higher targets through its policies. And so this is one that I imagine there will be some discussion of, but I wanted to pick a goal that sort of aligned with what I'm seeing in most other climate action plans. So new construction and major renovations of municipal buildings is meeting zero net energy building performance standards starting in 2025. And zero net energy generally means like the building generates as much renewable energy on site as it uses, broadly speaking.
Alex,
Yes.
quick question.
Mhm.
With these goals, how will it be interpreted by people who want to construct the new buildings? That is, what additional cost up front are they incurring by these, if any, versus a long-term benefit, both to the climate, but also to energy use of the building. Do we have any ballpark estimates of that?
These are great questions, and I think they need to be evaluated one building at a time. And so just to frame this, right, I think the goal at this stage is to have something very concrete for people to react to. And I would think that if people aren't raising concerns like that, then they're not engaged, right? But this is a goal. I think, and when we get into the strategies, I've tried to, frame the action items and strategies in a rational way. I don't think that there's any way that the town will commit to meeting these goals no matter what the cost is, right? All right. So next goal: existing buildings have completed energy efficiency audits and recommended weatherization projects. The goals by decade are aligned with the state's targets, not by what's easy. So 50% by 2030, 75% by 2040, 100% by 2050. In electrification, we were basically looking for all buildings to electrify over the coming decades, but have broken that down by residential and or private and municipal, and also broke out a specific target for heat pumps, which I think is one of the more challenging system upgrades today for most people. Okay, moving into energy. Electrifying everything is all well and good, but will make no difference in climate goals unless the electricity is clean. And so the clean energy supply needs to be there. So first goal in that bucket is to transition residential electricity supply to 100% renewable sources by 2030. And also transition municipal electricity supply to 100% renewable sources by 2030. And if we do that without energy resilience, people are not going to allow it to happen. So I've laid out goals in the resilience bucket as well. Eric, can you be on?
Just walk around.
Motion sensing duty. Okay. This room is so energy efficient. 100% of Milton residents have access to safety critical energy resources during a power outage lasting up to 3 days. Honestly, this one I'm a little off the beaten path in terms of climate action plans that I've read, but I just I feel like failing to acknowledge that the major changes in the electric grid that are planned in Massachusetts, that failing to acknowledge that it creates some risk of grid outages and interruptions in electrical supply is unwise, right? So when I sort of listen to energy sector podcasts and what people who work in the industry are thinking about, they're worrying about this constantly, and there are all kinds of technologies available both at the grid scale and commercially to manage those risks, and I think they should be part of our plan.
Be clear that they're saying it's worse with the green energy supply, or
I think it's worse while things are changing. There are capacity issues today on the grid, and there are increasing risks of outages due to storms, wildfire, flooding.
That's why I was asking the question, because I know.
But there are also increasing risks of outages due to increasing reliance on volatile renewable energy sources, if we're being honest about it. The sun shines when it shines, the wind blows when it blows. The grid was designed for always on baseload power, spin up your coal power plant whenever people are running their tea kettles. So our plan should consider energy resilience, not just climate risk resilience. And part of that is generating electricity locally, right? So the more we import our energy from outside of Milton, the more reliant we are on the grid. So a lot of towns have targets for solar PV or energy storage capacity. I didn't have time to research what reasonable targets would be, but I put a placeholder here for that. Then knowing that a lot of people won't get past the first couple of pages, I wanted to sort of dive in with top priority actions for a couple different groups. So since so much of our emissions in the building sector are from private sources, I wanted to start with what should residents and building owners be doing, right? If I could wave a magic wand and get us, the biggest chunk of emissions dealt with in Milton, it would be every private person enthusiastically doing these 5 things. Buying 100% green electricity through Milton's CEA program is something that's anybody could log on and do today for probably less than the price of a newspaper subscription for average households. And well, there's a lot of complexity under the hood in terms of like what it means to buy clean electricity. What we've got in Milton's CEA program is, the gold standard of what's available today. And at Sustainable Milton, we've been advocating for it pretty heavily. So that's sort of the lowest hanging fruit for most people. Also, doing a mass save home energy assessment and completing the recommended projects. Love to see everybody do that. And when the natural gas boiler or the oil boiler dies, ideally people would be replacing that from today. They'd be replacing that with a electric heat pump. Even though the grid's not clean today, over the lifetime of this equipment, the electricity is rapidly getting cleaner. Whereas if you put in another natural gas or oil boiler, it's going to last 20 years. You'll be burning fossil fuel the whole time. And these are not simple projects. So I think we want to focus on helping people, before they're cold in winter and their furnace is dead, like having done some of the groundwork to be ready to go for heat pumps instead of just doing the same thing on an emergency basis. Installing solar panels or battery storage when feasible and cost effective. So, I think people need to hear that, hey, not every home's a good candidate. And that's okay. You're not a bad person because you have trees shading your roof.
Question on the end for that sounds like it could advocate for battery only installation. Was that your intent?
Well, they're separate. I mean, you could benefit from battery storage even without solar. As kind of it's like a renewable gas generator, sort of, right? So for power continuity and outages, but they're best paired with solar for sure. And then for folks, whether or not solar works for your house, community solar programs are a way to actually accelerate the deployment of clean electricity in Massachusetts while saving money on your electric bill. So kind of a win-win, but people don't always know about them or trust these programs. And so I think getting more folks comfortable and participating in those would be great. On the municipal side, I think we need to start by doing electrification and energy efficiency pathway studies for all municipal buildings and incorporate that in capital planning. So back to your comments, Steve, right? Like we can't just commit to this without knowing what it's going to cost. But if we're going to take this plan seriously, the first thing we need to do is figure out what it would cost. And in a constructive way, right? Like I think there's a way of approaching that by saying, hey, look, it can't be done, you know, because you haven't looked for creative solutions. Creative solutions are out there. Partners who know how to do this cost effectively are out there. And that's, I think, where the town needs to be focusing in the immediate future. And we've heard this comment at previous meetings. You know, we've recommended in the past that Milton increase the renewable energy content of the CEA program for residents, but we don't purchase voluntary renewable energy for the town's power purchase agreements. I think that the town should be leading by example in doing that. On the town operations side, we need a staff member who pushes this stuff along. We should adopt opt-in specialized building code. Yay, we've done one thing. We need to facilitate those private actions, right? Those recommendations, particularly heat pumps and solar installations, are not easy. A lot of towns are having success with coaching programs and, you know, making sure that residents are accessing all the incentives and supports that they're entitled to. And particularly trying to help folks with the more complicated projects find vetted, reputable contractors, and also, you know, review their projects and get sort of independent support and making sure that the designs for their house are solid. And then we do have this lever with the CEA program and the clean electricity content of the default tier. So I think we missed our opportunity this year. We just started a new contract. It's set for 3 years, but next time that comes around in 2027, I think we need to have laid the groundwork with the town and with the select board to start moving that towards 100% for everybody, if we want to hit that 2030 goal. All right, any questions before I keep talking? All right. I won't go down to the action level, but I have sort of 5 or 6 strategies.
Hey, Alex, can I just comment? I used Abode as a, I guess, energy coach because I participated in the Mass CEC program and they were provided for free. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was so helpful because it's, you know, it's daunting to get up to speed on everything involved with the heat pump and then all the incentives and the equipment and if it's really gonna, you know, do what you want it to do, which is, you know, most importantly, keep you warm in the winter.
Yes. I've got them listed right here. In fact,
Yep.
When I did my fuel oil boiler to heat pump conversion, I overthought it for 2 or 3 years. And in that time, I worked with a coach from the Heat Smart Alliance. I think I paid about $100 to Abode because I wasn't doing it through a program. But it was well worth it to have them review my quotes and help me select the best one and give me questions to ask my contractor and that sort of thing. And I think, you know, if it's 2030 or 2040 and people still need that kind of support to be successful with heat pumps, we're not going to be in a good place. But in 2025, that's how things are, right? And I think the important thing is, you know, the people who are doing heat pumps in the next 3 or 4 years are going to be sort of motivated early adopter types like us. And it's important that they have success. So I think that's where the town should focus. You know, there's an adoption curve here, and we can't pretend like we're on the steep part, we're on the shallow part. So I think coaching could go a long way to sort of developing a positive track record there. Second strategy,
Oh,
update
and
our
now,
zoning.
Alex,
Yes.
just a shout out to you as a thank you. My wife actually attended the session that you had online about the new contract and found it informative. So just a thank you for hosting that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, one of our Sustainable Milton members organized that whole thing, and I just showed up to help. But I'm glad it was useful. So this needs more fleshing out, but the second strategy is to use zoning, building codes, and the development review process to encourage highly energy efficient, resilient, and low carbon new construction. The building code update was a big part of this, but a lot of plans have more going on here. This is not an area of strength for me, but I'm hoping some good ideas will flow in once I kind of make that high level statement and shop it around a bit. This would mean engaging the planning board, to figure that out. So I won't go too deep there because I don't really know what I'm talking about. Third strategy, leading by example in the management of municipal facilities. So municipal facilities are only 2% of Milton's emission, but it's still, if the town's going to have credibility to lead folks in a positive way towards making these changes in their own buildings, it needs to be walking the walk. And there's a lot to do here. So, coming back to your question before, Stephen, I think one thing that will help make the numbers work is being honest with ourselves about the sort of lifetime ownership costs of fossil fuel versus electric systems. The trajectory of natural gas prices is up and to the right. And so if you think about operating costs over the lifetime of these systems, electric alternatives start to look more attractive, especially when you're talking about larger municipal buildings, larger capital investments like geothermal heat systems can pay off in the long run with much lower operating costs. So working that into our process for facilities management, I think would be valuable. Yes, Lisa.
Not to interrupt.
Please.
I was thinking
myself talk.
what you were saying before about resiliency. I think, adding that to the actions here would be great. Like we've talked about, like cooling centers, or places when they lose electricity. If municipal buildings maybe have, battery storage, they might be able to, fulfill that role. And I think
there is something about that down here, but
okay.
But there are definitely room to add things along those lines for sure.
I think politically it's a nice thing to emphasize.
Yeah.
People are going to get something out of this.
Centers further down somewhere. But anyway, yes, when we talk about the energy manager grant, I think the intent of that grant is that the staff member that it funds would focus on a lot of these kinds of projects. Yes.
Two thoughts. One is, how do the private high energy consuming entities in the town fit in here? For example, the hospital, how businesses, private schools.
They're certainly included in the goals. So we have a widespread collective action problem where the town's in no position to compel
Right.
anybody to do these things. And so we have to, I think, focus on facilitating. So this coaching program should probably primarily focus on residents, but not neglect.
Well, that was sponsored
Institutional.
by, Commission, scoring the importance of the town leading and being part of the unrelated. By homeowners, but hopefully go well beyond homeowners. The other thought, was that earlier when you mentioned parties that would be engaging with, I didn't hear the DPW, and if that's not on the radar, that might be a good area to include, because the town engineer falls under the director of Department of Public Works, who is now Melina Fernandez, who is the former town engineer. And
Is she also the town engineer right now?
she's serving, wearing both hats right now.
Busy.
Bless her. And the town's environmental coordinator is housed in the engineering department.
So I was just talking about the main folks to engage on buildings. I thought of DPW. I mean, I'm sure they have a few buildings, but they're, I think, would be a much bigger player in stormwater and transportation.
But their tentacles are good.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, we'll be talking to them. Yeah. Okay, fourth strategy, deploy distributed energy systems such as microgrids and district geothermal to reduce peak demand and power essential services in a grid outage. Oh, Steve, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, just sort of a side question. You're in a brand new space there, and just so I understand sort of where the town is starting from, is that like a LEED Gold rehab, or is the new fire station LEED Gold? I mean, is the town thinking in that frame yet? Are these buildings built for the sustainability and resilience?
I get the sense that they make an attempt, but I think we need, there's been a lot of staff turnover for one, so I think just engagement is necessary to kind of see how these decisions are being made. I know like the new fire station, they evaluated heat pumps and solar and decided not to do either. Or there's still a natural gas hookup over there, for example.
All right, so it's we're starting at a fairly low level to try to educate and get people bought into these concepts, I guess.
No, I mean, I think that they're fully aware of these technologies, and like they did a big heat pump installation at the library, but just I don't have the level of awareness there that I would like to.
Okay, thanks.
So the fourth strategy is gets into that resilience category, Lisa. We heard about the microgrid study last month, and that sort of fits into preparing the town for energy interruptions to be resilient in an emergency. So I put piloting a solar battery microgrid system in there as an action. District geothermal heating systems. There's some folks in town who'd love to see a district geothermal system installed for the two churches, police station and town hall. There's sort of downtown area. I don't know if that's going to gather steam or not, but these are the kinds of sort of energy infrastructure innovations that we should be looking at and evaluating carefully. And I did want to put in here a nod to fuel powered backup generations as a totally valid and probably necessary component of the solution. I feel like sometimes we create a false problem for ourselves, saying that there can't be any fossil fuels anywhere. And therefore exposing yourself to like some pretty profound risks in a power outage. If you've got, a natural gas or propane generator that only runs like a few hours a year, and it's going to keep people safe, like we should absolutely do that, right?
That's wise.
Yeah,
Also the understanding that even battery electric vehicles, if the building of them is not so green, and that includes a lot of battery
yeah.
backup type things, so.
So electricity is
a
the
cleaner solution.
in the sort of 2050 we did it future. Electricity is the predominant energy source most of the time, but even the state's plans sort of expect that there will be residual emissions and also a lot of like low carbon fuels. So like biofuels, even though you're burning something that's chemically identical because the carbon comes from the current carbon cycle, it doesn't have the same global warming impact, right? So you just could never grow enough corn to make enough biofuels to power our economy today. But I think as a backup fuel, yeah. So another strategy here, we need to proactively engage Eversource's grid modernization process to ensure that Milton's getting the grid capacity and resilience that it needs. So one thing I learned, and Kyle, I see your hand, I'll come to you as soon as I finish introducing this. I looked at Eversource's electric modernization plans for the region. And Milton is in a sort of deficient capacity zone compared to some of our luckier neighbors. So we're served by a substation in Hyde Park, which is already at capacity and is projected to be at 150% capacity by 2030. And I think that's like a peak capacity thing. So obviously on a normal day, it's not a problem, but the kind of peak load where it becomes a problem will become more and more frequent over the coming decade. And they currently have plans to expand that substation adequately by 2029, which is not so soon. So they have a public engagement process that's been running for a year, but it seems to my knowledge, they haven't proactively reached out to Milton, and I'm not aware that we're engaging with them. So I think that's something that we should be involved in. I don't have specific actions. And then this last one, I don't know if this belongs here, but it sort of does. Under resilience, expanding the town's capacity to reach all residents with emergency and routine communications. I think this will fit under wildfire, under heat waves, under flooding, under grid outages. I think that the town's channels for getting a message out to people are pretty slow, and they don't use social media much. So something to think about. All right, so Kyle.
Yeah, just quickly, it's like a local microgrid strategy. How does that compare to the programs that some of the utilities have already for like I was just learning about the Connected Solution program where you can offer up your own battery to the grid basically for usage. I guess does that fit in where I'd be curious where programs like that fit into any of this?
I think I'm still learning about this myself, but my understanding of the microgrid proposal that we heard about last month was just exactly the same. Solar plus battery with a kind of connected solution style ability to dynamically power from battery versus grid in order to shave peaks or weather short outages. It's the same thing, just when you scale it up to several buildings with higher loads, then you call it a microgrid because. So I think the core of a microgrid is the ability to island during an outage and retain power locally. And so, yeah, if you have solar panels and a battery in your house, then you have a teeny little microgrid to keep your coffee maker working. That's the thing that I care about the most.
It's important.
I'm lucky not to have larger electricity needs. So that's my update. I'm hoping to put this in front of some stakeholders in the new year and start getting difficult questions and feedback. Yes, Ron.
Yes, I noticed that the recommendations for implementation have yet to be developed.
Yep.
To me, dealing with the conservation plan, that was one of the more difficult pieces to do because it's complicated, and how to translate this into action and negotiate with the different players, I think need some specificity or some sort of plan, along with some kind of estimate of the costs that would be involved, which also is a difficult number to come out with. But and as part of the implementation plan, it would be great to have some short-term 2-year outcomes in addition to longer-term outcomes.
Yeah, I think getting to this level of detail is sort of necessary to get to that next level of detail, right?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of getting a cost estimate is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you need to know specifically for what, right? And I also think another key piece of recommendation for implementation is like who's supposed to do it? Whose responsibility is this?
Exactly.
And again, I needed this level of detail to go to those people and say, how would you feel being responsible for this? Oh, you terrible, or you don't have time? Well, maybe we need to hire that energy manager. Or find funding to do it, but I totally agree. I think that level of detail will come out of the engagement process.
Okay, good.
And we talked a lot about grant funding last time. I just can't see myself doing this alone or without some paid help. So hopefully this is getting us towards making a case that we need that help to get where we need to go.
Okay, I think that in the larger scheme of things, we need at some point, I presume it'll come within the next year, to have a sense of what we're talking about writ large in terms of each one of our plans. I lose track of how many there are, but at least I think 4 or 5 of them with some kind of proposed implementation and cost involved, because that, I think, would give us the opportunity to pursue funding and implementation, not just in addition to on a limited work plan specific, sector specific trajectory, in a larger sense, in terms of a climate action plan for the town.
Yeah, I doubt that a trustworthy cost estimate is possible at the level of these goals. I mean, like to retrofit one municipal building, each one of those is a project to get a cost estimate, right? You often will need just sort of like the town went out and got a grant to get a consultant to do a cost estimate for a microgrid. So you kind of need to, you first need to get alignment that this is something worth even knowing what it's going to cost. And then you need to pay some money to find out what it's really going to cost. And if you really want it to happen, you need to be strategic about working with folks who are going to figure out how to do it at an affordable cost. I think often what happens is you say, oh, I have to cost this out. Well, let me put in some really high number for the climate friendly stuff because I'm not actually trying. So I think if we can get to a place where we want to make it work, we hopefully can find ways to make it work.
Yeah, but maybe that becomes part of the 2-year action plan, is to actually do all the negotiations and the
Yeah.
cost estimates.
Well, that's why in my priority actions for the municipality, I have pathway studies.
Yeah,
So I would like to, I mean, I would definitely maybe put like 2-year outcomes at this level.
yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
Quick question.
Thank you for, yes.
The the next grant from the Mass CEC, I know it has a focus on K-12 schools. Is it just buildings, or would it also include their transportation?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, TBD. Okay.
I think Mass Save has a focus on buildings, but
Yeah.
you might be able to get away with if you get the kind of person who cares about all of it, you might get a little more.
Mhm.
All right. So let's move on to item 6 on the agenda. Annual report to town meeting. So I sent an email around. We were invited this year to submit an annual report to town meeting. That would be due January 24th, which I think is before our next. It might not be before our next meeting, but it would be too late to start organizing to prepare such an annual report. I think it's a great opportunity to get back, just get some mind share from town meeting members, remind them that we're doing this work, and eventually we're going to bring some real stuff to them, hopefully soon. And so I wanted to get a subgroup to kind of work together to prepare that. Probably not too different from the progress report we gave to the select board, but obviously updated. And I was thinking it'd probably be good for the committee to authorize some individuals to do that work on behalf of the committee, since it'll probably won't have another opportunity to kind of endorse the output.
Alex, based on other committee work, the minutes that you have will be essential putting together the report. A great resource.
That might be too much detail though, don't you think?
Yeah, but you just extract your highlights. You don't,
Yeah.
you mind the minutes, you don't use
Yeah.
the minutes.
So I mean, I feel like I've done that for the progress report I gave them in September.
That didn't go to town meeting.
No, but I would start from that and update it. And
Yeah, that's all.
yeah. Do folks broadly agree with that plan?
Just a question on you said, authorized people. I'm assuming that's people within this group?
Yeah,
Or-
like a subset of us to just
Yeah, it's
write
not
it
pulling
and
in
submit it
others.
without having to come back for an approval. An act of trust, if you will. And I think it should be more than just me, because I like working on teams, and also just nice to have a few pairs of eyeballs involved. So any volunteers? Eric?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, so, can I make a motion to have the committee authorize myself, and Eric Miller to, prepare and submit the annual report to town meeting for 2024?
You want me to tell the way I will be on it?
And Arthur, you put him in the motion.
You put in motion or you part of the group?
I'll be part of the group.
Yay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All opposed? Okay, all in favor? Okay, excellent. I was just trying to see if you were paying attention. Wonderful. And that takes us to our last topic, which is grant funding opportunities update. We sort of worked this in along the way, but we did get our first real grant application submitted last week, working with Nick Connors on town staff, who is just so great to have somebody who I can reach out to with this committee's concerns and action items. Glad to have him, and thanks to Lisa and Anna and everybody who contributed to that application. I thought it was a useful exercise, whether we get the money or not. It was there's some good learnings, particularly around, you know, the funders there have a focus on driving energy resilience and positive climate outcomes for environmental justice communities. And so one of the things that Nick Connors was able to put together for us was a kind of demographic overview of, you know, our environmental justice communities, which are actually 25% of Milton's population lives in census tracts, which are designated environmental justice communities. So that was a learning for me, and like knowing where they are.
What's an example of one of those areas? Just
So the area sort of towards Mattapan, around Tucker, is a EJ community on the basis of minority, like a majority minority population. And then actually the census tract that includes Winter Valley meets the low income criteria, which surprised me because the census tract also includes some very big houses.
Yeah.
What's that?
It does.
So that surprised me when I first saw it, but there's a lot of folks at Winter Valley I didn't realize. And so it's nice to learn things like that about your community. So we will see how that goes. One thing we heard from MAPC was they really prefer to see matching funds to supplement that technical assistance grant that in their experience is not enough to fund the whole process. Although the amount of work we've already done puts us a little further along. We probably, if they engage us in the next round, we might need to look for additional sources of funding. Sustainable Milton is working to launch a climate action fund, and voted to establish that and like open a bank account for it and do all the sort of background work to be able to collect funds to support the work of this committee, but also the kinds of projects that might be in the climate action plan, as a way for Milton residents to support this work, not necessarily through their tax dollars, but through charitable giving. And then, as we mentioned earlier, there's a pretty exciting and large grant to enable us to hire an energy manager for the town that would be due at the end of January. So anybody who's interested in helping to get an application together, please let me know. I think to do a strong application, we would need strong engagement and partnership from Consolidated Facilities and the schools superintendent. At a minimum, the more the better, though.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
so I'm ready to help on that.
Thank you, Lisa.
And I've met with the superintendent in the past. Now he came here from Middlebury, Vermont, and now my son lives there, so I can leverage that contact.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm happy to help with that.
Great, and I'm finding that, whether the application is successful or not, the conversations that you have to put the application together are worth the time. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm looking forward to unplugging and relaxing for the holidays first. And I hope the rest of you are as well. So that's all I have to say on that topic. Are there any other comments? Okay. Well, barring additional comments, I will entertain motions to adjourn our meeting.
So
I hear a motion to adjourn from Arthur. Are there any seconds? Okay,
Second.
Ron got that one. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Marvelous.
happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you all for your time. It's
Yeah.
good to see you, and I hope you have a relaxing holiday season.